Happy Halloween, everyone! It's a wonderful night for eyebrows. It's a wonderful night for teeth. But it's not such a wonderful night for horror movies, at least not for me. I mentioned in a previous review that I don't watch scary movies.
I don't watch scary movies. Ever.
The reason for this is a little odd, though. It's not that I'm scared of them, it's that I'm so scared to get scared that I'm not scared. If that makes any sense. My early years were the heyday of the slasher flick, the dead teenager movie, and I was so terrified to see them. So you know how some movie previews tell you, just keep telling yourself, it's only a movie. That's what I do. When I watch a horror movie, as soon as it starts getting scary, I remember that it's a movie, and I lose all my suspension of disbelief right there. So how do you figure the fact that my favorite movie of all time is a horror movie? You can say it's entry level or for kids, but at the end of the day, there's no denying that Return to Oz is a horror movie. These late 80s puppet fantasies from just before CGI started taking over are notorious for traumatizing young childhoods, but this is one of the most traumatic of all. But it's the movie that I see in my head when I think of Oz. As we all know, Return to Oz is the at long last official sequel to 1939's The Wizard of Oz, as you can clearly see by the fact that Dorothy is 6 years younger and it takes place 40 years in the past, and there's no farmhands or Miss Gulch or... No, Return to Oz is not the official sequel, which I wish I could shake everyone who was going to the movies that year and tell them, no, it's just another Oz movie! The events of The Wizard of Oz have already happened, but Disney was either assuming you read the book before you came, or they intended to make their own Wizard of Oz movie and never got around to it. Spoiler alert for a 75-year-old movie, at the end of MGM's The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy wakes up in her own little bed in her own little house. The house was not carried away by a tornado and she dreamed the whole thing. Aww. In Return to Oz, they live in half of a house, because they still haven't gotten around to replacing the one that was carried off by the tornado. Dorothy, of course, knows where she went, but all Aunt Emma and Uncle Henry know is that their little foster daughter has not been the same.
All she ever talks about is someplace that just doesn't exist. Talking tin men, walking scarecrows, ruby slippers.
That's right, ruby slippers. Disney paid MGM a pretty penny just to use the slippers and nothing else from their movie. After her traumatic experience, Dorothy has a really hard time sleeping until this night when she sees a shooting star. There, she fell asleep. Clearly the rest of the movie is her dream. Now today, we would diagnose Dorothy with post-traumatic stress disorder and put her on a regimen of tranquilizers. But this was the year 1899, and what were they using then?
Electricity.
Yes, Dorothy is arranged to stay overnight in this electroshock therapy clinic with sullen orderlies, a cold head nurse, and a head doctor who is just shy of becoming William Shatner.
Now this fella here has a face. You see it?
Why, it's Spock!
Here it is.
Now in the MGM movie, Dorothy had friends in real life who became her friends in her dream. But Dorothy has no friends whatsoever in this story. Except one. There's this one mysterious blonde girl who gives Dorothy a carved pumpkin as an overture of friendship.
This is for you.
Hey, no sudden moves, just put it down and we'll be friends, alright? Alright? This leads to the only proof in the story that Dorothy might be crazy, the part where she combs a pumpkin. And then, under cover of nightfall, Dorothy is wheeled into the operating room for the first haunting, traumatic sequence in the movie.
Ready?
Yes, Doctor.
Obviously, the machine actually did work and it erased her brain completely, and the whole rest of the movie is just her lobotomized dream. But her little blonde friend rescues her.
Wait, what's that? Screaming. Their patients have been damaged. Locked in the cellar. Quick!
And together they flee out into a Kansas flash flood.
Run, Dorothy, run! Stop!
Now, obviously, this is where Dorothy drowns, and the rest of the movie is her wish dream in the seconds before death. Dorothy manages to survive by clinging to a chicken coop, and this is where it starts to get a little bit familiar. Now, Return to Oz boosters like me will often say, this is the movie that's the most like the books, but all that part that we just saw up from the very beginning, that has no root in any of the books. This is where it starts becoming the Ozma of Oz movie. Dorothy awakens in the chicken coop with her friend Billina.
Billina?
Who else?
Oh, I forgot to mention, in this movie, Billina is Dorothy's own pet chicken.
Billina, if you don't start laying again, Aunt Em says she's gonna stew you up for supper.
And when Billina starts talking, that's Dorothy's clue that she might be somewhere familiar.
Strange, ain't it? How's my grammar?
If this is the land of Oz, then this is the Deadly Desert.
Anything that touches the sands of the Deadly Desert turns to dust. My question is, when did Dorothy learn this? Now, if you look closely, this scene makes it clear that Dorothy does touch the sand, and as she turns to dust, she hallucinates the rest of the Stop saying this, people! Not every movie is incident at Owl Creek Ridge! Dorothy finds a lunch pail tree.
Look, Billina.
I guess they must have had a sort of cross-promotion thing with Ev. And goes off to look for the yellow brick road, not realizing that the rocks are watching her.
Nobody.
Your Majesty, she has returned to Oz.
This is our first look at some of the most spectacular effects from this movie, Will Vinton's original claymation from the glory days of the California Raisins and the Noid. Dorothy finds her old house, but all the munchkins are gone and the yellow brick road is in pieces. So she runs down it as fast as her legs can carry her and makes the journey that took her half a book last time, all the while being reported on by that strange rocky messenger. Dorothy finds her way to the Emerald City, only to find it now a shoddy marble ruin.
Well, Billina, that was the Emerald City.
All the people have been turned to stone, or decapitated, or both.
Billina, these ones have lost their heads.
Well, that's what I call just plain carelessness.
And the only living people in the city are... Get ready. Trauma number 2.
Come here, chicken!
All you kids who were afraid of the flying monkeys in the first movie? Guess what? Walter Murch is about to make you his chimp. In the book, the Wheelers were kind of pathetic, but in this movie, they're real monsters, and they have a real kind of London Punk's Not Dead feel to them.
The Gnome King doesn't allow chickens anywhere in Oz.
And just as in Ozma of Oz, Dorothy finds her way to safety and meets TikTok.
The Royal Army of Oz.
Army. It's just a bunch of old junk.
TikTok is an amazing puppet in this movie. I especially love the touch of how he talks with an animated mustache.
Good morning, little girl.
Good morning, sir.
Now, if you didn't read the books or watch my review, TikTok is not an electrically powered robot. He runs on clockwork. He has a key to wind up his thought, his speech, and his action. And they do wind down occasionally, leaving him completely helpless. In this movie, he winds down 3 times, each time driving the plot a little bit. With her powerful new friend, Dorothy makes short work of the Wheelers and demands some answers.
The Gnome King! The Gnome King! He conquered the Emerald City. He took all the emeralds. He turned everyone to stone. There's only one person that knows where the Scarecrow is.
Princess Mombi.
I don't remember her.
Princess Mombi is a fusion of Mombi the Witch from the Marvelous Land of Oz and Princess Langwidere from Ozma of Oz. At first, she behaves just like Langwidere, demanding to take Dorothy's head.
think? I believe I'll lock you in the tower for a few years till your head is ready. And then I'll take it.
I believe you will not.
Oh dear, my action has run down.
There was wind down number 1. But this tower has a familiar face waiting for her.
Mom, is that you?
No. I'm Dorothy Gale.
Oh, for a second there, I thought my mom had come back.
Now, in the books, and a number of other retellings, Jack Pumpkinhead's primary personality trait is his stupidity. This movie goes in a much more subtle direction that I really appreciate.
Anyway, Mombi was about to destroy me with her stick, but she decided to test some powder of life she just bought from a magician.
Jack Pumpkinhead is mere days old. He's literally a lost child.
It worked, and here I am.
In the absence of his real mother, he turns to Dorothy as a mother figure.
May I call you Mom, even if it isn't so? Oh, thank you.
The voice of Jack, by the way, is now the president of the Jim Henson Company. He's also Jim Henson's son.
You sprinkle it on something, and the thing comes to life.
Does Mombi have any more of it?
If she does, it's in cabinet 31, with her original head.
With Jack's help, Dorothy manages to escape from the tower and rescue Tick-Tock. Phase 2 of the plan, however, requires a whole new character. Now you may be wondering who Dorothy's third friend is going to be on this adventure. Are they going to find the Wogglebug and blow him up to human size? Are they maybe going to build the Sawhorse or release the Hungry Tiger? To my surprise and a lot of other fans, this movie turns out to be the Gumps' star turn.
Good. Now go and get the head, Jack. Hurry.
Yes, sir.
Up in the storage room, Tick-Tock and Jack are assembling couches, palm fronds, and a big moose head into the third member of their party.
That is right, Jack. Left, right, wrong.
What are you talking about, Tick-Tock?
Little girls, pumpkin heads, make chicken fly the coop.
And that was wind down number 2. While Dorothy has to steal the key from off of Mombi's sleeping body, and Mombi doesn't wear her head while she sleeps. Not quite the traumatic part, not yet. Here's what you were waiting for. Traumatic scene number 3. It's a big one. As a matter of fact, trigger warning.
Dorothy girl.
Weog, Teog, Peog.
Peog?
That's it.
With the help of their new flight-endowed friend, Dorothy and her friends manage to escape from Mombi'S Tower and fly all the way to the Gnome King's mountain. But they're pursued by wheelers along the way, who learn the hard way why you need to stay on the rocks when you cross the desert. Traumatic scene number 4. I'd say so. But because the Gump was so hastily made, he's falling apart, and he literally comes apart just as they reach their destination.
If I had a stomach, I know I'd be sick.
The Gump didn't have much personality in the original book, but in this movie he's kind of a deadpan snarker.
This is terrible. Suppose I meet another Gump. I'd die a second time of embarrassment.
And now at long last we meet the Gnome King. At first he's just a rough-hewn face on the mountainside, and then they ask him why he stole all the emeralds.
All the precious stones in the world. all made for me. So imagine how I feel when someone from the world above digs down and steals my treasures.
You know, he honestly has a really good point. And then suddenly the Scarecrow!
Dorothy!
Scarecrow!
Kind of got a weird face there, doesn't he? The original plan was for the Scarecrow to have a much more complicated animatronic face, but budget cuts.
What's happened to the Scarecrow? Where is he?
Oh, I transformed him into an ornament. Into an amusing and beautiful ornament for my palace.
Now we're back to the parts borrowed from Ozma of Oz. Just like in that book, Dorothy and her friends are challenged to enter a room full of ornaments and pick out which one happens to be the Scarecrow. Thankfully, they don't need 11 guesses like they did last time. No, Billina has been hiding in Jack's head all this time, where she's been struggling to lay an egg.
There's no sign of the chicken.
One by one, Dorothy's friends enter the ornament rooms and are transformed themselves into ornaments. But the funny thing is, look at what happens to the Gnome King each time.
Next. Next.
Soon, there'll be no one left who remembers Oz, and I will be completely human.
Oh. Wait, why does he want to be human? This is something that the novelization by Joan D. Vinge actually went into detail about. The gnomes are, for the most part, immobile. They can't leave the bedrock. The Gnome King wants to be human so he can spread his evil all over the world.
You came all this way for a scarecrow? Are you sure you didn't come back for these?
My ruby slipper!
No.
You know, when I first saw this at age 6 or so, I thought that was an incredible reveal. Of course, I didn't really have the rigid gender roles hammered into my head that I do now, and it does look a little bit silly. Funny thing is, in an early version of the script, Dorothy was going to find that her magic ruby slippers had been transformed into the Gnome King's magic ruby belt to match the book. I guess they decided, hey, we paid this much to get the ruby slippers, we might as well use them.
Your army is standing perfectly still in the middle of the room.
And that was wind down number 3, or was it?
Pretend that you are winding me up anyway. You can watch and see what I am changed into.
Dorothy Gale, you're all that's left.
Through intuition or luck,
Oz!
Dorothy makes the right answer.
Such places.
You're a green ornament.
I was?
Maybe people from Oz turn into green ornaments. Oz! Oh, it's you, the ghost!
And the Gnome King, losing his humanity rapidly, goes to put a stop to it. Did he just say sup? The Gnome King decides that if he can't absorb them through magic, he'll do it the old-fashioned way. Hey, you don't remember this from the book either, do you? It's actually inspired by a Georges Méliès movie called Conquest of the Pole. Now, L. Frank Baum was a fan of Georges Méliès movies. He might have actually seen this one. I always like the thought that if somehow we ever got to show L. Frank Baum this movie, he would have seen that scene and be like, oh, I get it. But just as Jack Pumpkinhead is about to be consumed, Billina, if you don't start laying again, Chekhov's egg!
Don't you know that eggs are poison?
Just in time for... The Gnome King is dead, Mombi has lost her power, and Oz is free. And now, because they knew they'd never get a chance to make a sequel, here's everyone from all the movies that we're not gonna get to make! The end scene of this movie is an egregiously decadent display of beautiful costumes and character designs from John R. Neal brought to life. There's General Ginger, the Guardian of the Gates, the Shaggy Man, Ambi, Allegro da Capo, and even the Bumpy Man and the Frog Man. Yeah, we haven't met them yet in my show, but they'll come along. But there's still one mystery. Who was that strange blonde girl?
Ozma.
My real mom!
That's right, it was Ozma. They don't touch on Tip in this movie for some reason. In fact, almost no movies ever touch on Tip. I wonder why that is. Why were we mature enough to deal with him in 1905 and not ever again? Dorothy leaves the ruby slippers and Billina in Ozma's care.
Give my love to all the chickens!
And returns to Kansas.
It's Dorothy!
Hey, all you mind control conspiracy theorists. How did Billina get left in Oz, huh? Did Aunt Em and Uncle Henry oh, we've left Dorothy alone with strangers for the first time ever. I know, let's kill and eat her pet chicken. Justice has been served, in more ways than one.
The clinic was hit by lightning. It burned to the ground.
And life finally seems like it might be getting back to normal. Especially for Dorothy, who now knows that her friends are never far away. For some people, the original Wizard of Oz is comfort food. This one is for me. Disney had been trying to get an Oz movie off the ground since the 50s. This was the final product of that effort, and even it was sort of abortive. Disney and MGM, however, seem to have different views on the reality of Oz. In MGM's continuity, Oz is a dream. In Disney's Oz, however, Oz is real, but it's a sort of parallel universe where you meet people that are related to people that you know in the other world. We see this again in Disney's Oz the Great and Powerful. In Return to Oz, the Gnome King, Mombi, and the Head Wheeler are based on Dr. Whirly, the nurse, and the orderly. But since Dorothy has no friends to bring with her to Oz, instead she reaches out to the weird machine, the pumpkin, and a trophy on the wall. I'm stretching a little, I know. But the question remains, if the moral of The Wizard of Oz is that sometimes you already have the thing that you want the most and can't see it, then what's the moral of this story? I'm not sure what the moral is, but I know that the characters were wrong about themselves in kind of the same way as in The Wizard of Oz. TikTok prides himself on being a useful appliance with no feelings, but he clearly cares for Dorothy whether he admits it or not. The Gump rattles and moans and claims to be embarrassed, but he's willing to suffer even further indignities because he does care. And that leaves Jack. Jack Pumpkinhead spends the whole movie looking for his mother. And this is where it breaks down, because it's not like he had his mother all the time. Did he?
Are you sure you're not my mom?
There's nobody left who even knows who you are.
I wish I could be in both places at the same time.
And that's how this movie deals with the question of Tip. In Disney's version of Oz, everyone has an Oz counterpart, and Dorothy's is Ozma herself. It's a good question to ask on Halloween. If you went to Oz and met the Oz version of you, who would they be? Let me know in the comments.